Imagine this. I'm 23 years old, standing in my parents' backyard in Charleston, South Carolina, the smell of burgers sizzling on the grill, kids running around, and my dad Nathan flipping patties like he's done every Memorial Day for 30 years. Everyone's laughing, swapping stories about fishing trips and high school football games. Then I pull up in a red Ferrari Roma, the engine growling so loud it drowns out the chatter. Heads turn, jaws drop, and my dad freezes spatula in midair. I step out, keys in hand, and say, "Sorry, I'm late." Traffic from New York was a nightmare. The silence is deafening. My dad forces a smile and says, "Whose car you borrow, son?" The crowd chuckles, but I pull the title from my pocket and hand it to him. "It's mine, Dad. Bought it yesterday." His face changes, and for the first time in years, I feel seen. But here's the kicker. This isn't about the car or the money or even proving him wrong. It's about what happens when the people you love most don't believe in you, and how you turn that pain into something bigger than you ever imagined. I'm Joshua Langford, and this is the story of how I built a $14 million empire, hid it from my family, and changed everything, not just for me, but for my dad, too. Stick with me, because by the end you'll see why success isn't about flash. It's about building a bridge between who you are and who they think you can't be. Growing up in Charleston, success meant one thing: hard work you could see. My dad Nathan ran Langford Landscaping, a business he started with a single truck and a dream. To him, a man's worth was in his calloused hands, his sunburned neck, and the sweat on his brow after a long day under the Carolina sun. He'd come home with dirt on his boots, proud of every lawn he'd mowed, every tree he'd planted. I watched him build that company from nothing, and by the time I was 12, I was out there with him hauling mulch, cutting grass, learning the value of a dollar earned the hard way. But I was different. While my friends were playing basketball or sneaking beers by the river, I was in my room hunched over a beat-up laptop teaching myself to code. I'd read about guys like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg dreaming of building something that could change the world. My dad didn't get it. He'd walk by my room, see me staring at a screen, and mutter, "Pathetic boy. You never had a head for success." Those words cut deep like a blade I couldn't dodge. Every time he said it, I'd work another hour, determined to prove there was more than one way to make it. When I was 18, I got into the University of South Carolina's business program. My mom, Denise, a school teacher who saved every penny, slipped me $500 she'd tucked away and whispered, "Go make something that makes you happy." My dad, he handed me a $20 bill and said, "College boys think they know everything till the real world hits." That was his goodbye. I didn't let it stop me. At school, I dove into finance and tech, building algorithms that could predict market trends. Sophomore year, one of my professors saw my work and said, "Josh, this could revolutionize investing for regular folks." That was the moment I knew I was onto something big. I dropped out the next semester, moved into a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, and went all in. Picture me at 20, living off ramen. My desk, a folding table, coding 16 hours a day while my buddies were tailgating at football games. I was chasing a dream, but every call home reminded me how alone I was in it. My dad would interrupt me mid-sentence to talk about a new client's lawn or suggest I apply for a real job at his company. "That computer thing ain't working out, is it?" he'd say. I'd smile, say, "It's fine," and hang up my stomach in knots. For 2 years, I poured everything into my algorithm. I pitched to venture capitalists in New York, Atlanta, even Silicon Valley. Most didn't take me seriously. "Too young," they'd say. No experience. I'd walk out of those meetings head down and tape their rejection emails to my wall, not to motivate me, to remind me who I was up against. My roommate Thomas was my lifeline. He'd bring me burgers when I forgot to eat, proofread my pitches, and never once doubted me. "You're the smartest guy I know, Josh," he'd say. "Just don't forget me when you're rich." My mom would call asking gentle questions, but my dad's voice was always in the background, sharp and dismissive. At Thanksgiving, he introduced me to his clients as my son who's still figuring things out. At Christmas, he suggested I manage one of his crews since that tech stuff's a dead end. I'd nod, bite my tongue, and go back to my laptop. But inside, I was screaming. Have you ever felt that when the people you love most don't see you? I bet you have. Maybe it's a parent who thinks your art's a hobby or a sibling who laughs at your startup. That pain, it's fuel, but it's also a weight. Then on my 23rd birthday, everything changed. I got an email from Blackwater Capital, one of the biggest hedge funds on the East Coast. They wanted to license my algorithm for $14 million. I stood in my kitchen coffee going cold, reading that email 17 times to make sure it was real. I called Thomas first. He screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away. I called my mom and she cried happy tears this time. I didn't call my dad. Why? Because I was done begging for his approval. I'd spent years hearing I'd fail, and now I was trending on financial news sites, my face splashed across the Wall Street Journal with headlines like 23-year-old dropout lands 8-figure deal. They mentioned my age 3 times like that was the story, not the tech. I didn't care. I'd made it. But I wasn't going to tell my family, I was going to show them. 3 days later, I signed the contracts in New York. The Blackwater execs took me to a restaurant where the menu didn't list prices. The CEO, Patricia Donovan, raised her glass and said, "To the future of finance." Everyone clinked glasses, but all I could hear was my dad's voice. Pathetic boy. That night, my cousin Evan texted me. "Just saw you in the journal. Josh, you're famous." I opened my laptop, saw my story everywhere, and made a choice. I wasn't going to call home. I was going to make a statement. The next morning, I walked into a Ferrari dealership in Manhattan wearing jeans and a t-shirt. The salesman ignored me until I mentioned I was looking at Aroma Cash. 2 hours later, I drove out in a red Ferrari, the kind of car that turns heads in Charleston. I didn't buy it because I loved cars, my old Toyota was fine, but because it was a message my dad couldn't ignore. I drove straight to Charleston, timing my arrival for my dad's Memorial Day barbecue. It's the event of the year. Clients, employees, cousins, neighbors, all gathered to eat ribs and hear my dad brag about his business. I pulled into the driveway at 2 p.m., the engine rumbling like thunder. People stared before the car was even visible. I parked next to my dad's pickup, the one he'd always been so proud of, and took a deep breath. This wasn't revenge. This was about being seen. I stepped into the backyard, keys in hand, and the conversation stopped. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad stood at the grill, spatula frozen. "Sorry I'm late," I said, walking toward him. Traffic from New York was terrible. He recovered fast, flashing the smile he used for clients. "Well, look who decided to show up. Whose car you borrow, son?" The guests laughed. I pulled the title from my pocket and handed it to him. "It's mine. Bought it yesterday." His face changed as he read it, but he folded it and handed it back. "Must be nice to have rich friends who trust you with their toys," he said, turning to the grill. "Grab a plate. Your mom made potato salad." That moment should have felt like victory, but it didn't. It felt empty. All day I tried to talk to him. I mentioned the deal. He talked about landscaping contracts. I explained the tech he needed to refill the cooler. When his business partner asked about the Wall Street Journal, my dad cut in, "Don't believe everything you read, Pete. Journalists blow things out of proportion." By evening, I found him in his office, doing paperwork like always. "Dad, we need to talk about my company," I said. He didn't look up. "Nothing to talk about. You got lucky with some computer thing. Don't think it makes you special." My voice stayed steady. $14 million isn't luck, it's work. He finally looked at me, eyes narrow. "You know what built this family? 40 years of breaking my back, not pressing buttons on a screen?" He pointed to a photo on his wall, him at 20 next to his first truck. "That's real work. That's real success." I pushed back. "What I built is real, too." He leaned forward. "Is it? I've seen your type, Josh. Flash in the pan. You'll blow through that money and those Wall Street sharks will spit you out. Then you'll be back here begging for a job." I left without another word. My mom tried to soften it in the kitchen drying dishes. He's proud of you, Josh. He just doesn't know how to show it. I shook my head. No, Mom. He's not proud. He's threatened. A week later, things got worse. My cousin Evan called. Uncle Nathan's telling everyone your deal fell through. Says you rented that Ferrari to show off. Then I got a text from Thomas. Your dad came by the apartment asking where the money's going. Even Patricia from Blackwater emailed. Someone claiming to be your father called our office asking about our agreement. We didn't share anything. I was furious, but then my mom told me the truth. Langford Landscaping was failing. Big chains were undercutting his prices, and he'd remortgaged the house to keep it afloat. His attacks weren't just pride, they were fear. Fear that my success meant his way of life was obsolete. That hit me hard. I'd spent years thinking he hated my dream, but now I saw it. He was scared of a future that didn't need men like him. I could have walked away, let him stew in his denial, but I didn't. I loved my dad even if he didn't get me. So I got to work. I called Patricia at Blackwater asking for data on Charleston's landscaping industry. By noon, I had a list of the top players. By 3 p.m., I'd set up meetings with 2 of them. I called a real estate agent about properties for a tech incubator in Charleston's old industrial district. Then I met with Greenscape Enterprises, the biggest landscaping company in South Carolina. Their owner, Harold Jenkins, was hungry to expand. We've had our eye on Langford Landscaping, he said. Prime clients, good reputation, but Nathan won't talk to us. I leaned in. What if I can change that? By evening, I had an offer. Greenscape would buy my dad's company for $1.2 million, twice its value, with a 5-year contract for my dad as regional manager and jobs for all his employees. I also signed a lease on a 15,000-square-foot warehouse for my new company, Horizon Analytics. I was bringing my operation home. I hired Evan fresh out of college as my chief operating officer. You serious? He asked. I've never run anything. Neither had I told him. But you believe in this, that's enough. 3 days later, I walked into my dad's office, unannounced, carrying a folder. He looked up angry. So you finally show up after standing me up for dinner. I placed the folder on his desk. This is bigger than dinner. It's an acquisition offer from Greenscape. His face went pale. You went behind my back. I went ahead of you, I said. Your business is dying, Dad. This saves it. Your employees keep their jobs. You stay on with profit sharing. He stood trembling. So you sweep in with your Wall Street connections and take what I built? I shook my head. I'm saving what you built. Then I placed the Ferrari key on his desk. This is for you. An advance. He stared at it, suspicious. I don't want your charity. It's not charity, I said, heading for the door. The offer expires in 48 hours. Think about your employees. Think about Mom. The next morning, my mom texted. He drove the Ferrari. Didn't say a word, but he drove it. By evening, he'd called Harold Jenkins. A day later, they had a deal. I watched from a distance as my dad signed away the business he'd built over 40 years. He looked smaller, but his shoulders were straight. 2 months later, I stood on a stage in my new headquarters. 200 people in front of me. Employees, local leaders, journalists, my family. My dad stood in the back, arms crossed. Today we're launching Horizon Analytics, I said. We're making financial tech accessible to everyone right here in Charleston. The room clapped. We're also investing $2 million in Greenscape Regional Holdings, including the former Langford Landscaping. And my father, Nathan Langford, will lead our initiative to help traditional businesses compete in the digital age. The applause was deafening. My dad's head snapped up, his face unreadable. After he approached me, you planned this all along. It wasn't a question. I plan to build something that matters, I said. The rest fell into place. He looked around at my employees, the sign with my company's name. Your name's not on the building. Neither was yours, I said. But everyone knew who built it. For the first time, I saw respect in his eyes. Not approval, we were past that, but recognition. He held out his hand. I took it. The Ferrari stays with you, I said. A signing bonus. He smirked. Sold it. Bought a truck. Put the rest in your stock. I laughed. That was my dad. 6 months later, I'm in my office looking out over the Cooper River. My dad and I aren't close, but we're something better partners. We have lunch weekly, talking about his program for plumbers, electricians, and carpenters, men like him who need tools, not handouts. Greenscape's thriving their employees with stock options and better health care. My mom quit teaching and travels, now even dragging my dad to a cooking class in Italy. Thomas is my marketing director, Evan's killing it as COO, and we've hired 30 local grads, proving you don't need to leave Charleston to make it. Success isn't what I thought. It's not about proving my dad wrong. It's about building a future big enough for both our dreams. And every day I walk past a wall in my office with our company values. At the bottom, my dad's words, "Remember whose shoulders you stand on." That's the real win, not against him, but with him. Note: I'll keep writing to extend the script with additional details, subplots, and commentary to maximize length as requested. Please let me know when to stop. Now let's dive deeper. That moment with my dad shaking his hand in a room full of people who finally saw us both, it wasn't the end of the story. It was a beginning. Building Horizon Analytics wasn't just about tech or money. It was about rewriting what success means in a place like Charleston where tradition runs deep. I started thinking about all the kids out there like me coding in their bedrooms, dreaming of something bigger, but hearing the same doubts I did. What if I could show them there's a path, not by leaving home, but by changing it? That's when I decided to launch a mentorship program through Horizon, pairing local high schoolers with my team. I wanted them to see that you don't need to move to Silicon Valley to build the next big thing. You can do it right here in the Low Country with shrimp boats in the background and sweet tea on the porch. One kid, Malik, reminds me of myself at 16. He's a junior at West Ashley High coding apps in his mom's garage. His dad's a mechanic, a good man who doesn't understand why Malik spends hours on a laptop instead of learning to fix cars. When Malik joined our program, he showed me an app he'd built to help small businesses track inventory. Rough, but brilliant. I paired him with Evan, and now Malik's app is being tested by 3 local stores. His dad came to our last showcase, saw Malik present, and pulled me aside after. I thought he was wasting time, he said, voice low. But you're showing him how to make it real. That's what keeps me going. Not the money, but moments like that where a kid's dream gets a chance to breathe. I've also been thinking about my dad's world, the one he fought so hard to protect. Guys like him, landscapers, plumbers, carpenters, they're the backbone of places like Charleston. But the world's changing and they're getting left behind. That's why our partnership with Greenscape isn't just about saving my dad's business. It's about building tools for every small business struggling to compete. We're developing an app that helps contractors bid on jobs faster, track expenses, even predict cash flow. My dad's been testing it with his old crew, and last week he called me, actually called, not texted, to say, "This thing saved one of my guys from underbidding a $10,000 job." Hearing him excited about tech, that's a miracle I never saw coming. But let's be real, it hasn't all been smooth. My dad's still stubborn. At our last lunch, he spent 20 minutes arguing that paper invoices are better than digital ones. I laughed, but it reminded me how deep his roots go. And me, I'm not perfect either. There are days I catch myself chasing the next big deal, forgetting why I started this. That's when I think about my mom. She's been my quiet strength, the one who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Last month, she sent me a photo from Paris, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, smiling like a kid. "This is because of you," she wrote. I framed that photo for my desk, a reminder that success isn't just about what you build, it's about who you lift up. I've also learned something about doubt. It's not just my dad or Malik's dad, it's everywhere. I see it in the X posts I read where people share stories of family who don't get their hustle. One guy wrote, "My mom said my food truck was a phase until I catered a city event. Now she's my biggest fan." Another said dad called my graphic design doodling till I designed a logo for his church. Families love you, but they don't always see you. These stories hit home because they're mine, too. Doubt isn't hatred. It's fear. Fear of change. Fear of failure. Fear of a world that's moving too fast. Understanding that changed how I see my dad. He wasn't my enemy. He was just a man trying to hold on to what he knew. That's why I keep pushing Horizon to bridge those worlds, tech and tradition, the future and the past. We're not just a fintech company, we're a company about people. Last week, we hosted a workshop for local business owners teaching them how to use our tools. My dad spoke sharing stories from 40 years in landscaping, and I saw guys his age, tough, no-nonsense guys nodding, taking notes. One of them, a plumber named Ray, pulled me aside after. "Your dad's a legend," he said, "but you're giving us a shot to keep up." That's the legacy I want, not my name on a building, but a community that's stronger because we built it together. And here's a secret I almost gave up. Right before the Blackwater deal, I had a week where 3 investors rejected me in a row. I sat in my apartment staring at those rejection emails, wondering if my dad was right. Maybe I was just a kid playing with computers. Thomas found me like that head in my hands. "You're not quitting," he said, tossing me a soda. "You're too close." He was right, but I didn't see it then. If you're watching this, and you're at that point ready to quit, because the doubts are too loud, don't. The breakthrough's closer than you think. Mine was. And when it came, it wasn't just about the money, it was about proving to myself I could do it. Now, I'm not saying it's all perfect. My dad and I still butt heads. He thinks my office's open plan layout is too fancy, and I think his obsession with Ford trucks is irrational. But we're talking. Really talking for the first time in years. Last month, he showed up to a company event in that new truck he bought with the Ferrari money, a grin on his face. "Better than your fancy car," he said. I laughed. "Keep telling yourself that, Dad. It's not love like you see in movies, but it's ours, a respect forged in fire, built on years of misunderstanding and one crazy bet on a red car." As I look at Horizon now, I see more than a company. I see a mission. We're hiring more locals, expanding our mentorship program, and planning a second office in Greenville. I'm also working on a new algorithm, one that helps small businesses like my dad's predict market shifts. It's not about Wall Street anymore, it's about Main Street, about giving every dreamer a shot. And every night when I leave the office, I pass that wall with our values. My dad's words at the bottom. "Remember whose shoulders you stand on," remind me that none of this is just mine. It's his, my mom's, Thomas's, Evan's, Malik's. It's Charleston's. So what's the takeaway? Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself what's possible, then building a world where everyone gets a piece of it. My dad didn't believe in me, but I believed in him. And together, we're building something neither of us could have done alone. That's the real win, not a Ferrari, not a headline, but a legacy that lasts. I'm continuing to write, adding more subplots and details to extend the script. Please let me know when you'd like me to stop, or if you want to adjust anything. Let's keep going. I want to tell you about a moment that almost broke me, one I haven't shared with many people. A month after the barbecue, when I was still reeling from my dad's denial, I got a call from a lawyer. One of my dad's employees, a guy named Carl, who'd worked for him for 15 years, was suing Langford Landscaping. Carl claimed he'd been injured on a job and my dad hadn't paid for his medical bills. The lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was about trust. Carl had been like family, someone who'd taught me how to drive a stick shift when I was 14. I drove to my parents' house that night, found my mom in the kitchen, and asked her what was going on. She looked tired, older than I'd ever seen her. "Your dad didn't tell anyone," she said. "He thought he could handle it." That's when I realized how deep the cracks in my dad's world ran. He wasn't just losing his business, he was losing the loyalty of the people he'd built it with. I met Carl at a diner the next day, just the two of us. He looked worn out, his arm in a sling. "Josh, I didn't want to do this," he said. "But your dad's been cutting corners, not paying what he owes. I got a family to feed." I listened, and for the first time I saw my dad's business through someone else's eyes. It wasn't the empire I'd grown up idolizing. It was a sinking ship held together by my dad's stubborn pride. I paid Carl's medical bills out of my own pocket not because I had to, but because it was the right thing. "Why you doing this, kid?" he asked. "Because you were there for me," I said. "And because I'm not my dad." That moment taught me something. Success isn't just about building your own dream. It's about fixing what's broken for the people around you. That lawsuit was a wake-up call. It pushed me to move faster on the Greenscape deal because I knew my dad's employees, guys like Carl, deserved better. When the acquisition went through, I made sure Carl and the others got raises and better benefits. Last week, Carl texted me a photo of his daughter at her high school graduation with a note. "Thanks for giving me a chance to be there for her. Those are the wins that matter, not the ones that make headlines, but the ones that change lives." I've also been reflecting on what it means to be a son, a builder, a leader. Growing up, I thought my dad was invincible. He'd come home from 12-hour days, crack open a beer, and tell stories about outbidding the big chains or winning a client with a handshake. I wanted to be like him, but in my own way. Now I see he wasn't invincible. He was human, flawed, scared of a world that was passing him by. That's why I've started inviting him to our strategy meetings. He sits there skeptical at first, but then he'll drop a gem like how to negotiate with suppliers or why trust matters more than contracts. He's teaching me and I'm teaching him. It's not perfect, but it's progress. I've also been inspired by other stories, ones that mirror mine. Take Sarah Blakely, who built Spanx from nothing. Her family thought she was crazy selling shapewear door to door, but she kept going, turning $5,000 into a billion-dollar brand. Or Damon John, who sewed FUBU shirts in his mom's basement while his neighborhood said he'd never make it. Their families doubted them just like mine did, but they used that doubt as rocket fuel. I see the same fire in the kids we mentor at Horizon, like Aaliyah, a 17-year-old who's building a website for local Black-owned businesses. Her mom's a nurse always working and doesn't understand why Aaliyah's glued to her computer. But when Aaliyah showed her the site, her mom cried. "I didn't know you could do this," she said. Those moments when doubt turns to belief are what drive me. I'm also learning to balance ambition with humility. After the Blackwater deal, I got cocky. I thought I'd cracked the code that I could do no wrong. Then I pitched a new product to a client, a predictive tool for small businesses, and they tore it apart. "Too complicated," they said. "Your dad's crew wouldn't use this." I was embarrassed, but I listened. I brought the feedback to my dad, and we reworked it together, simplifying the interface. Now, it's one of our best sellers. That taught me success isn't about being the smartest guy in the room, it's about knowing when to shut up and learn. As Horizon grows, I'm thinking bigger. We're planning to expand our traditional industries program to Georgia and North Carolina, helping more businesses like my dad's. I'm also working on a scholarship fund for Charleston kids who want to study tech but can't afford college. I want them to know they don't need to be born rich or move to California. They can build something right here. My dad's on board, even suggesting we name the fund after my mom because she's the one who kept us both sane. I laughed, but he's right. She's the unsung hero of this story. Looking back, I realized my Ferrari moment wasn't about the car, it was about claiming my place. I needed my dad to see me, but more than that, I needed to see myself. Now I drive a basic sedan, no flash needed. My dad's got his truck, and we're both okay with that. Success isn't about outshining each other, it's about building something that lasts, something that carries both our names, even if they're not on the building. So if you're out there chasing a dream, hearing doubts from the people you love, keep going. Your breakthrough's coming. And when it does, don't just prove them wrong. Build a world where they can come along for the ride. Let me take you back to a moment that almost derailed everything, a twist I didn't see coming. A few months after we secure intellectual property for startups like ours. "I built this for you, Josh," he said. "It tracks every line of code, timestamps, it makes it untouchable. No one can steal your work again." I stared at him, floored. This kid who'd started as a mentee was now saving Horizon. I hugged him, laughing. You're gonna run this place one day, you know that. He grinned, shy but proud. We integrated his app into our systems, filed the patent claim, and leaked Ramsey's financial ruin to a Wall Street Journal contact. The conglomerate backed out. Apex collapsed, and Ramsey faded into obscurity, his empire reduced to a cautionary tale. A month later, I stood on a stage at the Denise Langford Scholarship Gala. 500 people, packed into a Charleston ballroom, local leaders, business owners, kids from our mentorship program, my parents front and center. I looked out at them, my voice steady. Horizon Analytics started as my dream, but it's yours now. Charleston's, my family's, our kids. We've faced leaks, lawsuits, threats, even hurricanes. But we're still here. Because we're not just building tech, we're building a future where everyone gets a shot. I announced a $5 million expansion of our scholarship fund, a new coding academy for low-country kids, and a partnership with Greenscape to digitize small businesses across the South. The crowd roared, but my eyes were on my dad. He stood clapping, his face lit with something I hadn't seen before. Pride not just for me, but for us. As the gala wound down, my dad pulled me aside, handing me a small box. Inside was a key not to a Ferrari, but to his old pickup truck, the one he'd driven when I was a kid. "You don't need it," he said, "but it's yours. Built my life with that truck. Now you're building yours." I laughed, shaking my head. "Dad, you're getting soft," he smirked. "Don't tell your mom." We stood there shoulder to shoulder, watching the crowd celebrate. My mom was dancing with Malik, Thomas was toasting with Evan, and Tanya was laughing with other parents, her doubts long gone. This was my legacy, not the money, not the headlines, but the people I'd lifted up, the city I'd helped rebuild, the family I'd fought for. Now, as I sit in my office, a framed photo of that gala on my desk, I think about what success really means. It's not the $14 million deal, the Ferrari I gave away, or the battles with Ramsey. It's the moments that stay with you. My dad's hand on my shoulder, my mom's smile in Paris, Malik's app saving our future, Thomas and Evan standing by me through every storm. It's Charleston, a city that taught me to fight, to build, to love. And if you're watching this, chasing your own dream, facing your own doubters, here's the lesson. Success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about building something so big, so true, that they can't help but believe. It's about turning your pain into purpose, your fights into family, your dreams into a legacy that outlives you. I did it not by leaving my past behind, but by carrying it with me, every doubt, every win, every shoulder I stand on. So keep fighting, keep building, and make your story one they'll never forget.